there's men that have murdered people that have less of a sentence than I have for digging a hole.
Now, when you say digging a hole, I mean...
It was a two-man foxhole.
What were you actually charged with?
I was charged with deprivation, which meant I lowered the property value of the game refuge.
By digging a hole. How big was the hole?
The hole was 4 foot by 7 foot, 8 foot maybe.
Okay, so we'll clarify that. You weren't actually digging it with a caterpillar or anything.
No, I used the excavator.
Oh, you
Traco.
did use, so you used an excavator.
Yep,
Okay.
a 330 cat excavator.
Okay, and how deep was the hole?
It was probably 5'8".
Okay, so 4 by 4 by 5'8", and it pretty much ruined Malheur Reserve.
Yep, that's what they claim.
That's what they claim, but you got to tell them too where on the easement that was in the parking
Right,
lot.
that was next to a parking lot on an abandoned road.
Okay.
You know.
Not any real damage. Did you run into any pipes or any wires?
No,
or?
The first scoop of dirt I hit old Native American TV cable.
I gotta throw.
Drilling.
So you've actually found some Indian artifacts, some old Budweiser cans. I had to say it.
No. The government charged me $750,000 for archaeological survey for digging this hole.
Well, they tried to charge you that much, yeah.
Well, it sounds like kind of what they did to the Bundys down there on the Bundy Ranch deal. I mean, they basically trumped up $9,000 worth of grazing right fees and turned it into $2 million by the time they got through with their fines and their fees and their penalties and all that crap. So the government has a way of making you a debt slave one way or another.
Right. And so what my lawyer suggested is if I offered the Paiute Indians $10,000, they had
sort of like a restitution thing?
A restitution payment of $10,000 that the government couldn't come back after me for the $750,000, which they were trying to get.
So did you do that?
Yeah.
And so you paid them $10,000?
I need to pay him. I agreed to pay him $10,000.
It's part of the sentence that was court
Good
ordered.
grief! That is
so the Paiutes.
That is outrageous. Good grief!
If it's not paid, they will take up to $100 to $150 out of his commissary each month to work on restitution.
So when they say pay immediately, that's where it's going to come from, folks. It's sorry.
We might want to get a fund started or something here. For
so
that.
I dug a hole. There was no archaeological evidence out of the 17 semi-loads of dirt that they say they sifted through with no artifacts.
But they're saying this was an Indian, a spiritual Indian site of some sort, or...
They said it was a burial ground.
It was a burial ground.
Right. There was never any sign of artifacts or any...
Was there any other thing
There
around?
was a forensics investigation.
They had a thorough forensic investigation that they billed me for in court to trump up the property value charges.
Is there any other Indian stuff in the area
there? It's in the area.
There is in the area.
But it wasn't anything to do...
But it's not designated as any kind of tribal land or any kind of a, thing for the Indians or...
It's a bird refuge.
It's a bird refuge.
Bird refuge.
They used to be Native American until they were chased off their land years ago and marched to Yakima.
And then it was ranchers. Hundreds of ranchers owned it.
And homestead land.
And then they put out hundreds of ranchers out of business and assumed their property illegally and never took the steps it took to own the land.
So that's the BLM, and that's pretty what most of this fight is about, is the fact that the BLM has exceeded their authority as far as owning property or controlling property in America according to constitutional law, 10 square miles, Washington, D.C., forts, ports, and courts, and all that stuff. So they're way out of bounds, and they've done this by putting fees on top of the grazing rights and the land rights, so that the property users, I guess is the best way to put it, the ranchers who have been having these property rights for, sometimes 150 years or better or whatever. These things have been handed down and purchased for family and generation to generation. So they stack up fees, and then after they can't, pay the fees, they confiscate the land. Is that sort of what's happening?
Right, or they take them to court time and time again, like they did the Hammonds. Ever since 1964, they purchased their new ranch, and they were taken to court multiple times and systematically attacked. Water rights issues, fence issues,
So they're
grazing
just looking for some way to put them out of business, is what it sounds like.
Yeah, EPA issues.
Right. And they got the full federal government behind them. And, you got a little ranch family out there that has to start going and paying all these legal fees.
What is so sad about the Hammonds case is they said their case would have been dropped totally if they signed over 20% of their land to BLM.
Sorry, it was 2/3 of their land.
Yeah.
So in other words, this is a land grab.
This is extortion by the government.
Right. Okay.
And it's documented extortion by the government.
Okay, so we know that a lot of this was charged with because the fire spread off their property, and they were charged. Explain that to us. And the Hammonds are and who are the Hammonds? Dwayne and Ryan? Is that who?
Dwight.
Oh, Dwight.
Dwight and Stephen.
Dwight and I'm sorry. I'm
right,
confused.
It's okay. There's a lot of names involved.
There's a lot
of political prisoners, dude.
Right.
All of these
Absolutely.
backgrounds.
Now, BLM lit a fire to deliberately burn out their ranch.
So it was BLM who lit the fire.
Hold on. BLM lit a fire to deliberately burn out the ranch. They lit a fire,
A backfire.
backfire,
I see.
To save all
To
of
save-
their winter feed.
and it burned across the fence on their allotment, 127 acres.
So the whole thing was over 127 acres on
Of sagebrush.
Of sagebrush.
That is now worth more than it was back then.
Now the word through the grapevine is that there's actually uranium deposits.
There is.
in this
And if
area.
you look at the geological survey map of the refuge, you'll find out all these stolen pieces of land had high concentrations of minerals.
I see. And that wouldn't have anything to do with like selling secrets to the Russians or 20% of our uranium being sold to Putin or anything like that, right?
It has everything to do with the Clinton Foundation as a whole.